Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to understand how Z ordering works and more importantly, how it improves the query performance. Let's get started. Now we will have a look at this Z order concept that we have done in the Databricks workspace with community edition and how we have done the Z ordering and what are all the columns we have picked. We will have a quick look at all those things. Now, basically, what is Z ordering? That question would come up to everyone's mind. So basically, a Z ordering is a data optimization technique in Databricks using Delta Lake that physically rearranges the data so that rows with similar values across the selected columns are stored together, close together by the way, which helps queries skip unnecessary files and runs faster. And also, I would say like many people still confuse Z ordering with a simple sorting where we use that order by two columns, and Z ordering is actually a data clustering technique that helps Databricks to skip unnecessary files while executing the queries. That's how it is highly differentiable between the normal ordering with Z ordering. Now let's get started in the Databricks Community Edition. We will also at the end of the video see how the Z curve algorithm, which is something which it uses in the internal computation to form the Z value. We will see that in detail as well. Now I am in the sales transaction table inside my Bakehouse schema in the workspace catalog. We will see the columns. Here we will see what are all the columns we should pick for the Z order, what are all the suitable columns, which are the columns which are not a good columns. Transaction ID, definitely we should not use for the Z order. It's a bad column, bad choice, as it is very unique and we rarely filter the transaction ID. It is very unique with each and every row will have the unique transaction ID. We often filter with the transaction ID, and bad choice for the Z order. Customer ID, franchise ID are some of the columns which are very good for this Z ordering, as it has a high cardinality filter, and if we could see many filters or group by or aggregations in the franchisee or any of the customers, we should obviously use these columns for the Z ordering. And date time, in case it depends if our particular database or all the queries use much of the date filters like greater than or equal to or between this particular date, we have to use that date column. It is also a good choice for the Z ordering. Product, only if there is a product level queries. And quantity, if you see these columns like quantity, unit price, total price, these are all the metric columns which are a bad choice for Z ordering, as it is a numeric and a metric columns we should not be using at all for the Z order whenever there is a metric related values. Payment method, again it's a low cardinality, not a good choice for Z ordering. Card number, highly sensitive, strictly no for Z order, as it has a sensitive information and it's always unique, as each and every customer or any transaction will have a unique card number, which is not a good choice for the Z order, and basically sensitive columns are not recommended for Z ordering. So that's how we pick the columns for the Z order out of a particular table. Now we will see in a real-time example of this particular table. I'm just querying the sales transaction from the Bakehouse. We could see this same table which we had seen before. Now we have picked customer and the franchisee. Let's do a Z order with these two columns as we have decided. We also said why we are picking these two columns just before. We could also introduce date time if we are using the date time in our queries, and these numeric columns are never a choice for the Z order. We should never pick those along with the card number, which is a sensitive one. Now we will see a real-time example of how this works. For example, I'm filtering with the franchisee ID. Say for example, this is very often we do filter with some column like franchisee ID. We query this. What happens inside the computation is that for checking this particular value, it has to do the entire sales transaction table scan. So it has to scan the entire table to bring this particular value for the franchisee ID, and then on top of it, it has to check for the date time which is greater than or equal to this particular date, which is a heavy cost consuming and a computation for Databricks, where we could make use of data skipping, which the Z ordering is helping us. How we are going to implement the Z order? We will start with the optimize, and the table name starts with the catalog schema and the table name with Z order keyword by the number of columns of our choice. We have picked customer ID and the franchisee ID for the Z order. We will run these things. So what happens now is that these two column values sit close together physically on the file system. Whenever we query, for example, we query with the customer ID and the franchisee ID likewise, we will easily get these particular values, and we don't need to have that remaining values need to be scanned. It can be skipped. That's how it works. And for example, once we do this optimize with Z order, we could actually see the number of files added, number of files removed. Since I've used a small particular data set for this one, this won't be helpful for seeing the insights, but on a real-time example, this is really helpful. We could see the actual data, how much values it is being shuffled. And now I would like to have a quick walkthrough on how this particular interleaving of this particular Z value. By the way, when we do the Z value, what actually happens? Z order. What is that Z order and how that Z value is being computed? We will have a quick look at that. So basically, when we do the Z order, it computes a unique value combination of all the Z order columns. Here, a franchisee ID and the customer ID combined together, it will form one Z value. That value, with use of that value, the system will do that ordering. We will see how it works. Now we are in the particular columns which we have shortlisted for Z order. One is the customer and another one is the franchisee, and we could see those customer and the franchisee ID listed over here. For example, let's pick this particular value of the first column of customer and the franchisee ID. What happens when we do that Z order is that before the Z order does that ordering of this particular value, it actually converts each and every value of that Z order with the equivalent of a binary interleaving values. For example, we have this customer ID and the franchisee ID which we have picked for an example for this particular transaction. Since we have picked these customer ID and franchisee ID as a Z order columns, what happens? To compute one single Z order value for a single row, it has to convert this particular customer ID and a franchisee ID into the relevant binary values for each of these particular columns, and all these bits are now aligned from the position from the max to min. For example, it goes like this. So if the total number of length of value we are having 8, it starts from 0 to 7 and 7 being the max, 0 being the min. How it happens is it will align that bits accordingly, and the algorithm of the interleaving bits are something which will starts from the max position of customer and the franchisee. So basically what does it mean is that it picks this first value of the customer ID and the franchisee ID, then the customer and the franchisee for the bit 6. So basically the position 6 value of the customer and the franchisee ID being picked, and it orders those values in interleaved results over here. So this is where we could see this customer and the franchisee value being aligned as per the interleaved bits which is being formed from the actual value. Now from this particular interleaved results, it forms the Z value, and this is how the Z value is being formed for each and every rows that we compute. And finally, with this Z value, if we query this particular transactions, we could easily get that particular value over the columns where we could see that results being performed. We could see that particular value over this one. I could just query this one, customer ID and the franchisee ID. It just directly computes that Z value, and for that Z value, it could directly fire that and it gets us the value. So this is how the Z order finally works on the Databricks environment, and how the Z value is being computed. We just have seen this. Now this is not just that it actually creates that particular value, it also do the data skipping on that file level. Thank you all.